Everyone to the House of Shadows and Ink, where I'm chatting with Dan Henk. Um, I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself. Like, just tell everyone what you do, and then we'll really dive deep into it.
Okay, my name is Dan Henk. I've been tattooing for 25 years. I own a tattoo shop here in New York. I also write novels. I have 5 out currently. I do a lot of art for bands and albums and book covers and magazine covers. Pretty much anything that I'm interested in, I'll do. Like you kind of have to sell me on it,
Nice.
but if you sell me on like it's a good idea, then I'll do it. But yeah, I do. And I also host a podcast called Skull Sessions with Dan Hank. So yeah, a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, on the House of Shadows and Ink, we are huge fans of, well, stories, anything scary, movies, whatever. But when it comes to artwork, and I mean, especially now with, AI and all this stuff, we want to make sure that we focus on the artists and we actually see the people behind this, like the wonderful work. I don't care if it's book covers or, I mean, the artwork they behind you, tattoos or whatever. Anything that takes the creativity and passion and skill and all that stuff that goes with it. So, good job, like really.
Yeah, thank you.
So, if you can tell us, like, where did it all start? Like, so go back, think back to when did you notice from a like creativity, what inspired you, imagination, like what was there at the beginning?
Well, I can't ever imagine not being like in that vein. Like I've pretty much always been that in that mode, that mindset of you know creating your own stuff. My dad was in the army. We lived on isolated military bases in like the middle of nowhere. We didn't have a TV, so I listened to the radio, or
Mm.
more often I'd pick up books and comic books. And I've read so many books and comics, but I remember they all inspired
Cool.
me. So I kind of lived in my own little fantasy world, and like whatever army base we were on, there were like woods nearby. So, I have all sorts of adventures and, pretend I lived in some fantastical world as I adventured through, I built tree forts, I'd BMX bike. And I always think, you know, like I knew I wasn't really like Machine Man or Superman or anything, but it's like, something could lurk around every corner. So I just have this imagination going strong. And as I grew up and I started reading stuff like the groundbreaking Watchmen and the Dark Knight and stuff like that, I was like, you know, probably there is a way to express all this rather than just reading other people's stories. I started my own stories, and I started like drawing stuff. And then, as I guess my background built up more, and I had more information and stuff. I just started coming up with concepts and ideas, and they've slowly evolved to be what I think are more original and more like uniquely my own. And eventually, I started
Mm.
encapsulating them as stories and you know, initially I was gonna do graphic novels, but now I like illustrated novels because there's too much to tell. It's just comics take forever, especially when you do all like the
Oh
intermittent
yes.
storyboards, like it's like going down hallways, going upstairs and stuff. Like I really like the stuff that's like in comics you call it splash pages or like full page like action scenes. That's what I really enjoy. So
Mm.
I try and mix those with my writing and like you know get a story across that way. So people really they kind of get like a visual aspect to what's going on, and they also get a detailed description.
No, that's cool. And I mean, now you can, even when you either you self-publish or you send to a publisher, if you've got your own artwork that goes with your pitch, and you can do your own cover art, everything. From a publisher's perspective, like I'd be super interested seeing someone come with their own artwork with cool cover art. It saves us a bunch of time and money, and that means you can like promote the heck out of your own work with like artwork, which is just visually, and it fits with the book. So that's awesome. So how did you get like start from? Okay, so I'm good at it. I can actually like see you in like high school, just like drawing in class, or while everyone's sitting in class looking in their books. So how did that turn into, like, what was your first like paying gig?
My first, well, I was super punk rock, so it kind of, and my dad moved every 3 years. He moved, so sometimes the art teacher like loved my stuff and would give me all sorts of compliments about how I was gonna go places, and I had creative writing teachers, and some of them loved my stuff. But then sometimes you get people who are like really like sticks in the mud, like there are people who are art teachers, but it's like they teach because they can't make a living doing it because they're not good enough, and they're just nasty. They're horrible to deal with.
Mm.
So people like that, and I mean, I was in that like teenage punk rock tip, so like if people fuck with you, you fuck with them twice as hard. So I get kicked out of classes, but then the
Mm.
next class I get straight A's. So you know, like I mean, it's my feeling, but my feeling was it wasn't a lack of potential. It was like sometimes you get, teachers that are just crap. But I kept getting, eventually I'd arrive at good teachers, and I kept it all the way through college. And I had a great art teacher in college. He was like he was like a controversial black artist in DC. And DC at the time was the murder capital of the United States. And he'd do stuff that like it would be so controversial, it would be kicked out of like major exhibits, but then he'd play it up. So then like he'd have a good story behind it. And that's one
Mm.
thing he taught me. He's like, you need a good story behind everything. So then to have a good story, and you go to the press and be like, oh yeah, this black artist and he's being oppressed, and all of a sudden he'd be everywhere, and like he'd be like the top of the exhibit. But I remember he taught me that, and I was like, yeah, that's some great advice. And I remember even when I did, like, it was a painting, like a huge painting of me beating up Jesus. And I mainly did it because I was like, really, on this controversial tip at the time. But I remember I submitted it, and all he asked was the assignment was illustrate your darkest side and your lightest side. So I brought it up, and he puts it up in front
Mm.
of the whole class, and he goes, is that JC? I was like, yeah, it's JC. And he's like, all right, explain how this is your darkest side and your lightest side. So I was explaining it, and I was like, oh, well, it's, he's like, you need a better line of bullshit. Bullshit is what sells art. Yeah, but he's right. So, you know, then I moved to New York, on his advice and his blessings. He was like, if you want to make it as an artist, move to New York City. So I did. I interviewed with DC Comics and Image Comics and Marvel Comics. And at the time I interviewed, they were all on the verge of bankruptcy. So they only wanted their mainstream characters, which, if you look at what I do, it's all
Mm.
like horror stuff. So it's like, that's not really like Bernie Wrightson inspired me. Like, that's not keeping true to what I want to do. And so it didn't work out. But then I started putting out my own stuff. And I was like, I could probably even tell a more complex story if I write it and then I do some illustrations as opposed to having to illustrate every single storyboard scene. And that's what I do now. And I'm pretty happy at the medium I've
Cool.
arrived at.
No, that's
I don't know
awesome.
if that's answering your
So you
question. I probably went all off the rails.
No, definitely. Thanks. So I love to hear any artist, like their story, the inspiration, like where everything came from, how it all came together, like the life stories. One of the I spoke to a Disney Imagineer recently, like who worked on the Muppet Show and like the Ghostbusters movie and a whole bunch of stuff. And she also said it's like meeting other artists and people.
Mhm.
It's not like, oh, I met this person, I met that famous person. It's like actually what you take away from them, like what you learn. So that's why I just love chatting with artists and authors and any kind of creative person. Like I just say creators. I don't care if it's an author or artist, um, because like there are similarities in like what everyone goes through, but there's no like exactly the same story, and that's like really interesting with everyone I chat with. So, and I mean, I love this. I love the genre. I love the industry. I love actual people doing the work, which is so important. So yeah, so like, do you do this full time? Like, how many hours a day do you spend on your craft? Like, more writing, more art?
Well, like you said, I run a tattoo studio, so I tattoo there, and I do a lot of like boring like manager stuff, like paying the bills and and payroll and stuff like that. But I only tattoo 3 days a week. And I've kind of oriented like that so that I can spend plenty of time working on my novels and my artwork. So I do a lot of art for like books and magazines. I've done comic books,
Mm.
I find it more interesting doing like covers and splash pages and like, individual storyboard pages, which I've done it. And, truth be told, I get kind of bored. So I don't think you put out your best work unless you're inspired. So but I do a lot of
True.
artwork, everything from illustration for, clothing companies to, like, conventions to magazines, books, whatever. So in my, tattoo studio, I have kind of an elongated room. So one section's for tattooing, and the other side is all, like, bookshelves and art table and art lamp and stuff like that,
Oh,
and I just
nice.
work on my various projects.
Oh,
So, I
that's
mean,
awesome. I'd
long
love
story
a
short,
spot like
it's
that.
more than 40 hours.
Mm. Oh, that's cool. So, let's see. I'm not sure if you can screen share now, but otherwise, what we could do is we could just overlay some of your artwork. If you want to maybe go through a few of the like your most important stuff, and you want to like tell us what it is, and then we'll just put the image in later on.
Oh, sure. So, what did you want me to put something up for you to see and then describe it?
If you can, otherwise you can just mention a painting or drawing, and we'll put it up later on, and you can still just talk about it now. So
Okay,
while you're
how about
talking,
I
we'll have
talk
the
about it
image.
now and then I'll
Okay,
send you the images because I don't necessarily know how to get them on
cool.
screen.
Okay,
So,
no, we'll put them on. That's cool.
okay, so I did when I first moved to New York, like the first really serious well, actually the second really serious relationship I had was with a girl who was a recent immigrant from Colombia. And I came down with brain cancer and she was like by my side and super like I could tell she was affected, she was really concerned. I was like, she's a very good person. Like, she was like, she was always like my biggest fan. She would like always tell me that, I was some talented artist, all this stuff that kind of like fluffed my ego. But when I had brain cancer and we'd only been going out for 3 months, and she was by my side the whole time, coming after work every day to see if I need anything, how I was doing. I was like, that is a really good person.
So,
So we got married, and so continuing down the path, like, I did a bunch of art stuff, but, you know, she was also a very pretty young model. Like, she did a lot of alternative modeling. So I'd have her like pose for stuff and I do paintings. So I did a painting based off her, and I entitled it Nightfall in the Bayou. It's like I always like the look of the bayou with like the creepy trees with like moss on them and
mm,
the swamp water and the alligators. So,
oh, nice.
I did an oil painting of her like walking across the bayou with this alligator riding up behind her and stuff. And she loved the painting. I got it in the magazine, actually the book Aphrodisia. And then I did another painting of
Mm,
her also, on the bayou, and I called Early Morning. And it's with her with like a gun strapped behind her back, like sitting confidently. And I got that also in Aphrodisia. I remember she was really excited that I got her in the magazine. Um, and then she died in a hit and run, and that's a whole nother story entirely. But we did like a memorial
sure.
concert and memorial art show, and I did art for the T-shirt that we sold to raise funds for a funeral at the art show. And in every book I do, I always that illustration I did for the T-shirts, I put in the book, and I say, you know, her name was Monica, so I say, you know, thanks to Monica Hank, always my biggest fan. You know, and or maybe some other text, but I tried to differ a little bit, but it's basically saying how much, how impactful she was in my life. So she was always my
Mm.
greatest supporter, always, always looking out. And so I always thank her. I always put the illustration in. And then my first novel, The Black Seas of Infinity, is kind of I don't know, I see more cosmic horror than sci-fi or horror, because I mean there are elements of sci-fi, but there's also a lot of horror in there. And the main character in there is like a scientist who kind of like his wife dies and is ignored by all the authorities, and he gets like a really nihilistic mindset, and steals a bunch of like recovered alien technology from the government. And yeah, part of that is based off of what
Cool.
I went through with my wife dying. And I like, I felt like I could talk about that with authority because I knew what that was like. But I also used
Mm.
another post she did. So there's a post she did as a model where she's like pouring milk on herself. So I made a blood, and like in the story, the guy has this like nightmare where like he sees his like late wife like pouring blood on herself. So, I did painting, and that was the painted cover of that first novel. And when that novel was first released, I remember the publishers, Anarchy Books, and Anarchy Books was saying, well, don't use that cover, use the sci-fi cover. Because, I was like, well, it's not really sci-fi. And they're like, oh, yeah, but, the sci-fi people will pick it up. And then, like, the horror people will pick it up anyways. And he was wrong, because when I use the cover with her, it sold way better. But, yeah, she's
Mm.
been, a big inspiration for a lot of stuff that I've illustrated, mainly in oil paintings. Eh,
I went to your Facebook page and saw a lot of, like, immediately you see a lot of there. And I was quite intrigued, so I like looked at a lot of your posts and read what happened to her and everything. But she's definitely like a muse still for you, like your
Yeah, she
inspiration. And
definitely was my muse. I remember, like, even she was also a tattoo artist, and I remember she'd go and do guest spots, and she just like brag about her husband to like whoever she was doing, the guest spot, like the other artists on scene. Like, I'm sure they're like, all right, we've heard enough about Dan. All right, but yeah, no, she was always like I said, she's my biggest supporter.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. And we'll definitely put links to like your book and your work in the description. Like anything new that you're working on now or any upcoming projects, a new
Yeah,
book.
well, I put out my first 3 books, and, then I got the rights back years later to the first 2 books, and I spent, like, 60 hours per book re-editing, rewriting them. I had illustrations. I put out what I thought were
Mm.
much stronger versions, because I was like, "Those are stories I've had forever.
Mm.
I love those stories." Uh, and over time, I've even thought about, like, some better twists and turns in them, and some more illustrations. And it's like, I really like for them to like reach their fan base. Like, I kind of think of like, how like a lot of bands, like often that first or second album they put out is the best one, because that's like the collection of their songs they've had
Mm.
forever. Like there ones that they've been working on, they've been polishing.
For
And
a
then when
long
they
time.
finally put it out, you're like, you can feel the intensity of it. And then they'll follow it up, and
Mm.
it's like, you're like, well, it's not bad, but it's not quite the same. It's like, yeah, well, because they had a year to come up with something that before that it took them a lifetime to come up with. So I
Mm.
kind of felt like that with my early stuff. I was like, I had that lifetime of experience to strengthen it. But now that I've done like seminars with like Stephen King and Alan Moore, and I have more than a decade of writing experience behind
Nice.
me, I can go back and do it justice. And that's what I did.
Mhm. It's cool that you mentioned Alan Moore. We actually did a whole run on his Swamp Thing comic book stuff. That was
Amazing, by the way.
really popular. Like, mm.
It is
No, I'm a
the art
big,
team on
big
that
fan.
Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, Steve Bissette, and John Totleben. They are my single biggest inspiration for the
Mm.
way that I draw. And I have my own podcast, and at one point I interviewed
Cool.
Steve Bissette, and he's a really nice guy. But I remember I did a piece for Dynamite Press for their The Living Corpse comic, and I remember that Steve Bissette said some really nice things about that. I was like, "Oh, my fucking hero! I like my stuff. That's awesome."
Oh, that is cool. So, what would you say is like the best thing you've worked on, like like fanboy kind of thing, if you have to think back to your younger days?
Well, I don't know. So there are bands that are my favorite bands that I ended up painting album covers for. Like I painted the cover for the band Coalesce, which was one of my favorite bands, and they liked my artwork. And they were
Cool.
actually one thing I noticed when I started doing album covers is a lot of bands they're really like they're in a hurry to get the artwork, but then they're not in a hurry to pay you. Yeah. So then they play all sorts of games. I mean, granted, it's not necessarily because they're bad people. It's because a lot of them are kids, so they don't know. So, like, I'll talk to them. They're like, "Oh, talk to the label." I'll talk to the label. They're like, "We give them an advance. That part of that advance is that they can pay for the album artwork." So then I contact them, and then they go, "Oh, that's what it's for. We spent that." I'm like, "Well, I got to pay rent." You know?
Oh,
But I remember Coalesce was not like that. Coalesce actually was on board with everything. And I remember the label even giving them feedback like, "Oh, well, maybe the theme of what you're going for isn't what sells best for a band like yours." And they're like, "Yeah, fuck you. We'll do what we like." Yeah. So I did the outcome and they're great.
mm.
And there were other bands where it
Oh, that
wasn't
is
quite
cool.
so good, but hey.
And I have to say, like, my biggest love, I was a comic book fan, but my biggest love for like dark artwork came from band covers, like, the CDs of from Iron Maiden and Megadeth and like all those bands. I would go into like music shops and just like look at the covers and stuff.
Oh,
Like,
the
it
guy who
was
does
so
Megadeth
cool.
album covers
There
is
was nowhere
awesome.
else to see this stuff. Yes, like,
Yeah.
no, it really was. So that should be a huge treat to be able to see, to work on those covers. Like, you can just imagine. So yes, we're definitely going to showcase a lot of your artwork here. Is there like anywhere people can go and buy some of your stuff, like either for book covers or let's say like even like physical, like get the stuff shipped, signed and shipped, that kind of thing?
Well, there's a lot of artwork that I've done for people's bands and people's books because they requested it. So it's not like I'm like some people think, "Oh, he's so exclusive, he's so expensive." It's like I'll actually do it fairly cheap if I like the project. It's more about
Mm.
like doing stuff I like than it is about like just making money. So like I've done, and there's some people where I'm like, I know they're broke, so I'm not even gonna charge them, even when they offer me money. That's happened a few times. I would not say that's the way it always goes. So don't think you can get tons of shit for
No.
free. But like Jack Bantry, he does Bloodpunk. It's like I've done every cover of his fanzine so far, and he always offers to pay me, and I always turn him down. And I've done. He's put out like I think he's put out 5 books, and I did like 3 of the covers. No, he's put out more than 5 books. He's put out I think like including a collection of Splatterpunk. He's also put out his own books. So in total, I've probably done like 4 or 5 paintings, 4 book covers for them. And again, they offer to
Cool.
pay me every time. I'm like, well, you know what? I did that painting for something else. I never use it. It's yours. I'm not going to charge you. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
if
No.
somebody has something interesting, get a hold of me. Just email me. The contact form on the website, danhenk.com. And you know, I'll probably, as long as it's like not something lame like a Backstreet Boys album cover or something, then I'll definitely work with you like a album cover, book cover, magazine cover. I've done all those. And I have
Cool.
a Fine Art in America. You can buy like prints of all my stuff. So they have all my stuff, but I'll do stuff for your project if you contact me.
Mm.
And it's a good idea.
Cool. I'll put that in the description for sure. over your right shoulder. I'm seeing a painting there of a guy. What is that? Like, who's that? Um, let's
Um,
see.
let's see.
No,
There's
I'll have to show you
on my right, um, that top one
that
on the
one.
right, yeah, that's H.P.
Yes,
Lovecraft. He's like holding a tentacle, and
yes, that is so cool.
thank you. This
Like that.
H.P. Lovecraft is probably one of my biggest inspirations for writing. Like, I wouldn't even say his writing
Mm,
style per se. I would say his like the ideas he has in his head, the way he wraps up the story. I think it really grabs you.
mm, just that is cool. Definitely send me like one of those as well, so I can show like a close up, or if you can just take a photo of it, because I'm actually looking at, and I might get in touch with you when when I stop spending so much money on like on books and artwork and marketing. Like, I'm still like, yes, the company is like, yes, we started in 2012, but all the money that comes in, we're still just like putting back into the company. So everyone gets their salary, but we're still trying to get to our like push our marketing budget kind of thing. But we moved into a new office end of last year, and I'm slowly starting to like, put up stuff that have inspired me. So that wall is like full of comic books and massive bookcase on this side, and board games, comic books, games, movies, everything. Like, and like the figurines and stuff. There you can see a bunch of stuff coming through,
Yeah, yeah.
and because this is the stuff that inspired me. But what I do need is artwork, and so I just love that wall behind you. Like, I mean, I can just imagine what you feel like when you walk in there and it's time to get to
Well,
work, like
this is
time to
my
create.
house. My
That's
studio has just as much art, if not more.
cool.
I also have like all these
Yes.
like little like figurines or like horror creatures and stuff like that. Like Ricky
Mm.
Vitas, he was on it was a show on sci-fi I think it was called Face Off, and they do monster makeup stuff. So he made up like a werewolf for me. It's like have his
Oh,
face all bloody and
yes.
everything. I was like, that is awesome. So I have that in my studio. But I have like my
Cool.
studio, like, it's been described as two things. Either it looks like somebody's who's a movie, producer, it looks like their studio, or it looks like a man cave. Either way is appropriate.
Oh, that's cool. Look, that's my dream eventually. Like, so my little girl is turning 7 in December, and I'm already picturing when she's like a young teenager and her friends or like a boyfriend comes over and they walk in here and they just like see all this stuff. It's gonna be like walking to a museum of like DC, Marvel, horror movies, horror books, like any creepy thing that has ever inspired me. I mean, it's not just horror stuff, but I mean, it's everything has like a dark, weird, mysterious twist to it. And I mean, the I don't care how grotesque the. Okay, you get some gory stuff, but I mean, like the drawings and stuff behind you. I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, there's so much beauty in dark, weird, creepy, and it's difficult to explain. But I mean, like the H.P. Lovecraft one, I could see that the beauty in that thing from a distance. I didn't even know who it was.
Right.
It's just like the shading, everything is just
Well,
brilliant.
if
And
you saw
I
it
know not
close up, I'm
everyone's
sure
gonna
it'd pull
see
you
it.
in.
And I'm sure not everyone's going to see it. Like, some people are going to be like scared or freaked out, or hopefully your boyfriend's run away. I don't know. Their parents are going to probably think this is the weird place. But I mean, it's who we are. It doesn't mean we're we're weird or violent or anything. It's
You
my
know,
somehow my parents allowed me to watch scary movies. So as a
I was
youngster.
talking to Dicey Grinner. She's a female horror writer, and I was talking to her on my podcast yesterday, and she was talking about how like the people that like people often think if you're into horror that you're like some psycho, or she's like, those are not the people that shoot up skulls. Like, the people that don't do that stuff are the people that shoot up skulls.
Mm,
The people that are into that stuff, they get all out by like reading a comic book or like reading a book or watching a movie. It's like they don't feel the need to
mm,
like take it out on people.
Exactly. We have an outlet, basically. Horror authors are like, if you have to list like the best or like the nicest people in the world, horror authors are gonna be there, like in the top 10 for sure. And the nicest, you're gonna get the odd idiot here and there. You'll get that in any industry. But I mean, it's the nicest people ever. I remember a quote from a lady who worked in a hotel after like a horror convention. And she said, like, the nicest people ever, but good grief can they drink. Like, they can drink, but they're such cool people. And it's so true. Like, I actually miss out on a lot of it being down here in South Africa, and that's why I do this stuff, chatting online, because this is part of me just getting my fill of, like chatting with other creatives, and it just gets me
Staying
excited again.
connected with the community and so on. I understand. I have a
Mm,
podcast. I talk to people from all over.
nice. No, we have to do that for sure. And a lot of authors and other creators need to see this and listen to this kind of stuff. And I'm hoping, especially like with artwork, not to just like get people to come to you for work, but fans also just to see like and appreciate the art more, because they just look at the book and they're like, oh, nice cover, and they're like focused on the author. But I'm glad sometimes they do ask who's the artist, or they want you to list the artist, just to make sure it's not AI. And so we always list. We're even now starting to, on Amazon, put the name of the artist up there with the author, and like they can create their own author pages kind of thing, where all the books that they've worked on is like on display, which I think is really cool.
I
We
think
need
it's
to
a
like
lot more
put
of a
more
thing
focus
now.
on this. Mm,
I remember for a long time it was like arts were getting no credit whatsoever, and like they see something and like it kind of like whatever people said, nobody cared. But now they'll even
mm,
ask you like, "Oh, it's a great cover. Who did it?"
mm. No, that I'm happy to see that's happening. So that, yes, exactly. Like on our YouTube channel, I want to do the exact same. So whatever artwork you can openly publicly display, we'll do like a slideshow, and we'll just like, we want people to be mesmerized for like 20 seconds, just like paging, almost like paging through a book of your work.
Okay.
And even your writing, of course, we're gonna put that in there as well. We need to make sure like amazing creators get the spotlight, even if it's just for a 1 hour interview. And hopefully, as our channel grows, it'll just get more people to come and take a look. Fingers crossed. But yes, so we'll have all the links in there. What would you say is like a dream project if you could work on something one day, like a goal?
um, I don't know. Saying I don't know because I'm like, yeah, I'm super picky. It's like I actually have a whole bunch of things that I like, and I think for instance, it would be great to work on you know, projects that it feels like they started, but they just stopped. Like there wasn't enough
Mm.
interest in it, or there wasn't the money, whatever. But like there are things like I love the movie Event Horizon. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like
Oh
a
yes.
space horror movie.
Mm.
It's like
The way they go to hell.
yeah, yeah. It's like
No.
they have what's the name? He's a really good actor too. But he's like you know he's saying hell is not just a place. He's like, let me take you there. you know? And I was like, that would be great if they like flushed out and made like further expansions of that. Well, there's stuff like I remember the movie Alien, the Ridley Scott Alien movie, and they did a bunch of sequels, and like Aliens just felt like Marines in space to me. And then the only
Mm.
one that I think was well, the first two were good, but the only one that I really really like is the first one. So imagine if you did like
Mm.
a prequel, like explaining more about like the where the aliens came from, more like about the other races that were involved. I mean, there's a lot of stuff where it seems like there's kind of some potential, like it could have been a greater story. Maybe aliens. It feels to me like they kind of went off the rails. So it's like they try their explanation, and I'm not a big fan of it, but they already did that, so you don't really need to do that. But like, you could pick something that did like a one-off hit that was good, like Event Horizon, or something like Pumpkinhead, where like the
Mm.
first movie of Pumpkinhead was
So
awesome, but it'd be kind of cool if you like saw what led up to that, or like if you
mm.
saw
I can still remember I was in high school and we had like a sleepover, just a bunch of guys, and we were gonna watch. I'm normally the one that is like, oh, let's get some horror movies and stuff. And the other guys, they don't really watch it. They'll like just eat and chat and have a ball and do it, whatever. And I'm like the one that's like frozen to the screen. So I choose the horror movies, and like everyone was into Pumpkinhead. Like everyone was watching it. This was so different and like exciting and weird, all of it at once. So that's always going to be a good memory for me. It's not like my top 10 favorite movies ever, but the experience of watching it with my friends and like being like surprisingly good, that was awesome.
no, I think it's definitely an iconic movie. I would say, like, if I were to name like my top 10 favorite horror movies, that would probably not be there, but I would say it's a must watch. But if I were to name a top 10, like The Shining is probably my all-time favorite. And
Mm,
like I really like Stanley Kubrick because he puts so much depth in, like, you know, technicality into everything he does. And I feel like he did that with The Shining. Like everything from like at the end where you see the photo and it has Jack Torrance, it has like the
yes.
Nixon character. He's in the photo from like
Mm.
100 years ago. And it's exactly the same. Like everything is so intricately done. And then there's stuff where I feel
Mm.
like John Carpenter's The Thing. Awesome movie, but there are a
Oh,
couple things where
nice.
like when they find the alien spaceship and like the being dug out of the ice, like you can obviously tell that was like a landscape painting that they just put in there. It doesn't look
Oh,
real enough to
I
me.
remember that. Yes, I remember that. Like that was like the weakest part of the movie was that
Exactly, yeah.
visual.
But I was
Yes,
like, and I
that's
knew
true.
they were going to make a prequel to it about the Norwegian team that finds like the crashed alien saucer, and they're all about that. And then they thought the studio decided, well, we're not sure there'll be any money in that, so then they're like, just remake it.
Oh.
Everybody's like, it's a classic. Why would you remake it? So then they tried to do
Mm.
a little bit of a prequel, a little bit of a remake, and just the whole thing. It had so much potential that it just fell by the wayside. But if you did like a real prequel to that thing, I think it'd be awesome.
Mm. Well, it wouldn't be too hard to do some research and find out who owns the rights. And if once you know that and you get like a bit of artwork done and you pitch them something like a comic book or like an anthology, so it's not like a movie that's going to cost them millions of dollars or anything. You basically say like, we'll do a comic book run, graphic novel, uh,
Well, even when it's not something that's
maybe
like
a few
super
novels and an
expensive,
anthology.
I'm sure it still costs money. They're like
Mm.
and they're wondering if they're gonna recoup even like the low budget costs of the movie. Like a lot of like the stuff that was kind of like guerrilla filmmaking back in the
Mm.
day, like Evil Dead 2. Like Sam Raimi did that. Like his brother was an
Yes.
actor. People he went to college with were actors. So like he did the best he possibly could on a low budget because he's like so good with all of his creative angles with the camera and everything. He's able to pull it off. But he didn't have a lot of money that went into that. A lot of people just believed in the project. And I know people even that
Mm.
you would think would be able to pull it off, like Del Toro was going to do At the Mountains of Madness, which to me is Lovecraft's one of his best stories ever. And
Oh,
is it
yes.
like if you've ever read the story, it's like you can imagine it being made a movie. Like that would work as a movie. There's a lot of Lovecraft stories that would
Mm.
not that would definitely work. And Del Toro, who's a huge Lovecraft fan, wanted to make that into a movie. And I believe at first he got Tom Cruise involved in it, but the studio said, "Yeah, we don't see it making
Sure.
money." So then he got Brad Pitt involved in it, and they're like, "Ah, we don't see it making money." So it was like, even Del Toro, with his track record, like Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, The Shape of Water, even he couldn't get him to fund it.
Oh, that was cool. I'm actually surprised he didn't like fund it himself. I'm sure he can afford it by now. But yeah, that would be cool. I remember, and I mean, I believe I've read all of H.P. Lovecraft, but I was only about, I think, 20 by the time I read At the Mountains of Madness. And I was like, oh, let's see what everyone's raving about. And I thought I was only going to read like the first 2 pages, anything, and I'll read on like that night. I sat down and I just read the whole thing one shot through. Like, I couldn't stop. Like, I know he gets a lot of hate for a bunch of stuff, but I mean, if you just look at the work, like, good grief, for the time that it was done, even, like, it was just
Yeah, I always
amazing.
try to separate
So
the
I'm a
artist from
big
the art. You know,
I'm
like
a big fan of. Sorry.
I'm just saying, I always try to separate the artist from the art. Like if I like if everything I judge based off the artist, there's a lot of stuff I'm like I'm a huge fan of Danzig. I've heard Glenn Danzig is not the nicest guy. It doesn't matter. His first 4 albums are still amazing. Misfits was amazing.
Mm. Yeah, and it's hard because I mean, we don't know these people. I mean, like, we're having a nice chat now. Like, I could be a serial killer for all you know. I could be like a real asshole outside of this. And this could all be fake, whatever. Same with you now, but I love your artwork. And I mean, you could be hiding stuff from the world. I could be hiding stuff from the world. We can't be judged because you supported someone whenever. And then you see people burning books and burning artwork and stuff when they find out something. Like, yeah, it's probably their call, but I'm not one of those people.
Well, people are quick to
Let's
snap
see.
judgments on things too. Like they interpret it, and their interpretation is what they say is official. And you're like, you're way off. You don't even know what you're talking about. Like I remember when they were like, they went after
Very
all the
true.
records with all the like, it was called the Satanic Panic, and they like went after like Twisted
Oh, yes.
Sister, and they did an album called Under the Knife, and like they're all like, oh, is this promoting killing people? And he's like, this is actually about a surgery I went through. Yeah, like, you don't know.
No, it's so true. And yes, I'm like, back to H.P. Lovecraft. I'm a big fan of fiction written like between 1890 and 1915. Like, there's some of the best ghost stories and stuff have come from that era. I mean, if you think of Lovecraft and Poe and Ambrose Bierce, Elgin and Blackwood, like, those guys were amazing. Like, really, still today, like, their work is being considered just like top notch. And have you read Robert
Lovecraft would
Bloch,
be a
any of his
millionaire if
work?
he was still alive.
Like Psycho?
Yeah. I think
For
Lovecraft would be
sure.
a millionaire if he was still alive. Unfortunately, that's why I joke with people. I'm like, I'll sign your book, but it's not going to be worth money until I die. That just kind of seems to be the way it works. Like, if you're a good artist or a good writer, after you die, everyone loves your stuff.
So yeah, I think that the message then is create as much as you can, and don't worry. Don't worry what happens to it. Just create and get better and produce. And that's the thing. Like, some people, they have like that, everything needs to be perfect kind of thing, and then they create so much less. Like, so what's your like mindset when you go into something? Just like, even when you write something, like, when do you know it's done?
Granted, that is hard because you always go, yeah, I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that. You know, like to a certain point, I'll like take a painting off the wall, 10 years later, and I'm all like, oh, I can do this to it. I can rework it. But it seems to me with most stuff, kind of the happy medium I've arrived at is I'll work on something, and when it's done, it just kind of clicks with me like, now it's done. Now it's complete.
Cool.
So whether that's a painting or a short story or a novel, it's like I'll get to a point where I'm like, that encapsulates what I want.
Mm. That's good because, uh, and it kind of brings up the point of, and I know not everyone creates like this, but I like to, and I recommend this to authors that I work with as well. Like, you need to know what your end goal is. Like, what's the end of the story? Not going to be like, what's like this happens and that happens. What is the feeling that you want to give to the reader? Like, you want them closing that book and thinking, wow, this was a hauntingly sad book with like maybe a bit of hope, or just like an awesome gore fest, lots of fun moments. Like, what is that feeling? And I mean, the same with artwork. Like, what do you want the viewer to feel? What is the feeling that you have that you want to put onto that? Like, and then when you see it captures that, and I mean, you're not done until you get that right. So, and I think if you don't have that, it's like, and some people like they like to just write and see what happens. But like personally, I
Yeah, they
can't
call
do
it
that.
pantserst. That
Yeah,
seriously,
plotters
I
and
didn't even know that.
pantsers.
Like, I kind of write out like a rough storyboard with the ending for
Mm.
everything I do, and then like I leave it open so that along the way I can change stuff, but I still have
Yes.
a goal I'm working towards.
Mm.
But there are
You
people
know
I've
where
talked
you're
to
going.
that say I don't do that at all. I just they literally
Mm.
fly by the seat of their pants. They're called pantsers.
And it is definitely possible. I just think it's going to take longer. It's going to require much more rewrites and reading your own story over and over. So if you're not someone who wants to read your book 50, 60 times, definitely
Well, I'm
plan
a
a
little
bit. And
OCD,
I mean,
so
you
I'll
don't want to
reread.
plan too much. Don't plan too much, because then the writing process is terribly boring, like
Right.
horribly boring. So definitely leave space for like go off in different directions and whatever, as long as you know what your end goal is. But again, it doesn't have to be like, oh, this person is going to murder that person. It's more of like a feeling, a message like that you want to give through your writing, like family comes first, or blood is thicker than water. That's the message of the book. That's it. Or friends need to work together to overcome evil, that kind of thing. um,
Well, one thing that I think
so
is
no, this
kind of
is awesome, Dan. Anything?
I was just gonna say one thing I think is kind of a beginner mistake, and it definitely annoys me, is when people feel the need to tighten up everything at the end. Like everything has to be
Mm.
explained, everything has to have like a definite ending. It's like that's not reality. Like there's some stuff you just
No.
don't know why
and
to happen.
and and two things, like, you leave them wanting more. And
Right.
if you leave out a few things and you leave it open, like, you want readers to talk about your book. You want them to spend the next 3 days thinking about your book, instead of just like, okay, done, on to the next one. You want them chatting to their reader friends, like, go read this book and tell me what you think. And then they talk about it and they put questions in their reviews and they get other readers interested. And that's where word of mouth comes. So if you're going to over explain the ending, it's like everything's tied up nicely, they move on. Um, you don't do that. And I mean, you'll see that even in movies. They'll tie up the big things and leave a few things specifically there so that people can talk about the movie after it's done. And I mean, it's a smart move. So
No, I
it's
agree.
basically a
I think
marketing
one of the
thing.
biggest lessons I learned from Stephen King is don't over describe. Because like, coming from the art world, I'd want to like basically paint a picture with words of everything.
Mm,
But like you have to in a story, it helps if you like leave some space so they can construct their own scenario. Because often what people like build up in their mind,
mm,
you know, it can either be better for them, they can tell the story better. It'll still follow the rough framework that you laid out, but by them being able to like basically light it up in their own way, it's more impactful to them.
mm. No, and especially in horror, like, you can give someone the bare basics and the stuff like they put in their mind, like they're always gonna go worst case scenario.
It's true. Yeah.
So they're gonna picture something much worse than you could possibly even put down on paper. So giving them that space is gonna make the experience so much better for them, for sure. No, I like that. So anything else you want to like tell people? What, I mean, we talked about what you did, what you're working on, what a dream project would be. We're going to show a lot of your artwork. Anything else you want to make sure people know about?
Yeah, the big thing that I'd push right now is I'm doing a Kickstarter right now, and it's called Down Highways in the Dark. And just look for Dan Henk in Dark, Dan Henk on Kickstarter. And what I did is I got the rights back to my first few novels. So not only did I rewrite them, but I put them in like the signed in number hardcovers where I will personally do a little illustration in each one. So if you buy the hardcover, they're like $50 for a hardcover, but it's a hardcover oversized version, and I do a personalized illustration. And hopefully they'll be worth a ton of money once I'm dead.
And what's the weirdest thing you've ever had to tattoo on someone?
Oh, I could tell you stories for days. I've been doing this for 25 years. I remember a guy got a chrome heart tattooed on his ass that said Mama's Boy. I remember a girl got
Oh, no.
a red handprint on her ass. I remember a girl got she got a pig with wings and the words "When pigs fly, bitch." Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Where do you live? Like, where are all these people?
Well, I live in New York, so
Oh,
you
that's
probably
cool.
see the craziest stuff here. But I've also lived in
Oh,
Philadelphia, which is pretty much the same. I lived in Austin, Texas, which is like a smaller version of the crazy stuff in New York. So it's all those areas that are kind of like more in a way they're more like hipster and artistic and stuff like that, but they're also just like more in tune with like society and everything else going on social media. And yeah, you get people who want the craziest stuff. Like there's stuff I've turned down. Like there's one guy that was he was a sniper in Iraq. And he just wanted a whole sleeve of like dead bodies, dead Muslim bodies. I'm like, yeah, no.
Jeez. No, that's a bit much.
No, I was just gonna say one thing. It didn't really happen much anymore, but there were a couple times people would come in and they want like very Nazi stuff tattooed on it. I'm like, no, dude, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, but generally people like even if they want crazy stuff, I'll do it. 'Cause it's crazy, but it's not like something I object to. So when pigs fly, bitch on the ass. Okay, I wouldn't get that, but I'll do it. I don't care.
And so when you want to get a tattoo and you can't do it yourself, like, do you go to like an artist you look up to, or is it just like the people who work with you
Yeah,
that you
no, it's
trust?
always 'cause I know a lot of people in the industry because I've been doing it for so long. And I've been all over the world. I'm actually probably in more than 100 magazines and books and whatever on tattooing. And
Cool.
so I've met a lot of talented people. And when somebody does something that grabs me, I'm like, I kind of do a mix of things. I'm like, I want this series tattooed. I want something along this line. And I've seen you've done really great versions of this. And so I'll put them all together and I'll get done by them.
Oh, that's cool. And any advice for whether it's a tattoo artist or someone who's like a teenager and they find out they know they're really good at like artwork and stuff? What do they need to do? What do you recommend?
Well, I would say the best advice, twofold, and it applies to both tattoo artists and regular artists, and it applies to novelists as well. Just don't give up. You're going to get a lot of rejections, but that rejection, don't take it as a hardcore, like, yeah, you suck. And even if they say you suck, they don't necessarily mean that you will forever suck. They just mean they don't like what they're being presented with. So just keep it up. Like, I couldn't count the number of times that people have like applied a tattoo. It's only on the 6th or 7th time that finally someone apprentices them, and then they turn into like a tattoo superstar. Like, if you look at all the comic cards he made, like Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane probably, I think he applied like 100 times, you know, some crazy number of times. But
Sure.
you know, now he's like revered as one of the best comic artists. But it's like all that stuff is incredibly common. You know, you have people who they try, but you know, if they know in their head there's something good and they just keep at it, they'll go somewhere.
And if you get something too easily, you don't really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you have to go through, like, you know,
Also, what I was saying
put in the
is
work, get the
listen to
struggle.
criticism. There's a lot of people that like I've noticed in everything from the tattooing to the writings to the art world, like be open to criticism. Like that doesn't mean that like your mind is so open that like just anything anybody says you go, oh, okay. But like listen to what they have to say, take it into consideration, and it might apply. You know, so there are people that have thrown out stuff on everything from like writing to tattooing to artwork. And you know, you look at it like, you know, 5 years later, you're like, they're right. So be open. That's all I'm saying.
They were just a few years ahead of where you were. That's why I always say, like, look at whatever you're busy doing. Look at someone who's 5 years ahead of you. Look at someone who's 10 years of you, and look at someone who's like at the end of their career, and just like learn from them. Look at the path they've gone through. Look what they're doing. Who worked with them? Where were they like interviewed and reviewed or whatever? And not copy them, but it's the roadmap. The map is there. Like, just head in that direction at least. I mean, you can
Use
still
them
walk
to
your own
make you
road.
better.
Just
Like everyone needs that.
no, really. Well, Dan, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Whether people are artists, fans, readers, authors, whatever, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff here that they can like learn from and hopefully get motivated. And I'm a strong believer of we like soak in creativity from other creators. So hopefully you can motivate someone to go and do some amazing work after this, and hopefully you as well. So and I'm glad to have met you. I'm sure we'll chat a lot. I'm definitely going to look into some of your artwork. Maybe have an original here in the office someday. And we'll check out your projects and your Kickstarter. I'll put all the links down there. Send me what you can, and I'll put it in there. Especially the artwork. We'll do a nice slideshow and everything.
Oh, do
And
you want me to
we'll
send
chat
you
again when something big happens.
do you want me to send you some photos and like send you some pictures and you can decide what you want to use?
Even yes, even your studio, where you work, the tattoo parlor, whatever. I mean, we can advertise your business even. Why not? Because everything we talked about, we can like show pictures of as you talk about it. So, yeah. And thank you very much, Dan. Have an awesome day.